Hi, welcome to the Starr podcast. I'm Jane Townsend and I'm here with Julie Starr. The topic of this conversation is the qualification question.
Oh, the qualification question. You see, this is one where I could get myself into all sorts of trouble.
Okay.
But let's see where we go.
Yeah.
Let's see where we go. What are the key questions around this topic, do you think?
I think for me, sort of working with lots of coaches, it's kind of, well, first of all, do you need to be qualified? What does qualification mean for coaches, actually?
Yes. Qualification comes in two levels, doesn't it? There's an external sense of qualification. So somebody has administered some process around you that says you're qualified. Here's your certificate. You're a level something within the context of a something, and here's your piece of paper. More importantly for me initially is this sense of internal qualification that says, I qualify me. I am a coach. I have an identity sense around this topic that says this is part of who I'm being in the world for other people. And in our DNA, that is so much more important in terms of equipping you for your path than, you know, some proxy by post that you could have got on an online course. And this is where I'll get myself into trouble. That you've paid some money for, let's say. So yes, there are two types, aren't there? There's the internal and the external. And I think in this one, because of your interest and experience around this topic, you're probably wanting, and everybody else is, to cover the external sense of it.
Well, I think that's right, and I think that probably is where my sort of attention is around this question, because client organisations are asking for people.
Yes.
They're asking for our profiles. They're asking because they're now members. A lot of them have in larger organisations will have their own internal coaching faculties.
Yes.
They are now members of bodies that are now like the Association for Coaching or the ICF or whatever, who are then asking for more qualifications. So there's almost like a treadmill feel.
Yes.
I've got a qualification, well, I need another qualification. What level of qualification?
Yes.
And I think it goes to that point about that obligation.
Yes.
You feel obliged as a coach. Even you might have lots of experience and have great clients and do great work. I suppose it links to your point about the internal piece, because then, I need a level 7 for this level of work or for this particular client request.
Yes. And we see that, don't we? So we see an escalation of, it used to be level 3, now it's level 5. Can we have level 7? And more important to me is how many hours coaching are you doing and how much experience have you got and what else is informing your practice in terms of your own interests. So, are you a master practitioner of NLP, or do you have a background in TA, or what else is there around you that makes you interesting? Are you used to working in the family therapy arena? Do you have some special, unique, distinctive something that makes you interesting? So you can hear my complaint in terms of my frustration is we may be in danger of over professionalizing the field. That's when everybody will start to get upset with me. Look, we are in danger sometimes of over professionalizing the field in such a way that starts to put a burden on very skilled, very experienced coaches to keep up, and there's a financial burden on that. And it also starts to point us in the wrong direction, a bit like, academia and practical life skills. Of course we want somebody to have a good basis and foundation of coach training. Of course we want somebody to be broad in terms of their outlook and their understanding of the coaching field and all its foibles and functions. Of course we want that. We also want people to be emotionally mature, live, breathing, thriving people that bring their unique gifts and talents to the I nearly said sport then, to the profession. And sometimes by creating this, what I'm calling an over-professionalisation of the field, and by that I mean an increasing set of qualifications and bodies and courses, and the whole supervision question, and I know we're going to cover that in a separate podcast, but the whole, direction of all of that can cause people to labour almost in the wrong direction, where somebody's personal sense of qualification comes from their ability to centre on their strengths, their interests, their learning and knowledge. So, for example, if somebody wanted to, one of the areas I'm kind of active in at the moment is the whole mind-body healing connection. Something called trauma release. So I'm doing this kind of yoga body style work that's around trauma release in the body. That gives me nothing in terms of current currency around the professionalized coach qualification route. Nobody would want to look at me and think, okay, she's done, I don't know how many days training, probably 15 more days training around this trauma release stuff, to understand how energy sits in the body. That's going to be currency to nobody, and yet it has equipped me to understand signs and signals of trauma within the individuals that I'm working with. And I don't, I can't specify, I can't be super wise or practical about transferring that skill to anybody else. I just know it informs me as a practitioner in my field. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think this thing about overqualifying, because there comes a point is what is a qualification actually doing for your practice? A lot of coaches that I talk to will say, well, I need to get the next level, or I need to get my master's. And actually what's happening in some cases, in some sectors are more attuned to this than others, or more requesting of this than others, that actually their hours of practice are not necessarily equivalent to the level of the qualifications.
You're seeing that, aren't you?
Yeah, they get the qualification. Then they go to supervision. I know we'll talk about that in another podcast. And it still comes to the same point. Their confidence is almost tied round. Their view of their own confidence and competence is allied to the level of the qualification, as opposed to just doing the work and taking that feeling of confidence and competence from the great work that they're doing.
Yes. And I agree with everything you're saying, and I'm now cognizant of those individuals that are listening to this that are fresh to the field, and they're looking for how do I get qualified? Where do I get qualified? And we seem to be saying, oh, you don't, don't. Well, I absolutely, let's be clear, you and I both aren't saying that, and I know you're not saying that. What I am saying, and you've alluded to it just then, is know why you want a coaching qualification. Know within what context you're going to be coaching. Understand what is expected of you within that context. So, some areas recognise ILM more than they recognise EMCC, more than they recognise ICF or AC or any of those. There will be environments where you can find out and be informed by them what's recognised. I think what you're pointing out in what you've just said, which is super useful, is once you are on that track, know when to stop or when to press pause on that journey, and be informed and navigate by your own practice what seems to support you in terms of learning and development, and navigate clearly from a sense of that rather than what everybody else is doing or what seems to be the next thing. And also, from what you've just said, have the self-awareness to know, do I want to go from ILM level 5 to level 7 just because everybody else is doing it? Because it's a huge task, that, in terms of the requirements of an individual, not to mention the money involved. Do I want to go from 5 to 7 because it's super relevant and I'm going to feel fabulous after I've done it and I'm going to thrive on the journey? Or would I be better placed to press pause on that formal credential type of education and instead look at my own personal development, what interests me, what I seem to be recognizing as what needs to support me, and kind of inquired more in that direction.
Because when you're saying that, often people will look at coaches, and I've done it myself. You know, you look at a qualification as being a coaching qualification, whatever level or where you're going, or what body you do it with.
Yes.
You look at that as giving you all the information you need. But what you're saying is actually quite right. So there are different levels of there are different forms of development that support you as a coach. So there is something about the formalised coach training qualifications. Yes, that's important in terms of, you know, processes and structures and routines and tasks, etc., etc. There is something also then that's additional to that, then is about the different things that you're interested in, the different areas and fields that will support you in your work, in the way that you want to work, in the context in which you want to work.
Yes, totally.
And actually, I think sometimes people fold the two together and think that a qualification program is going to give them all of that information. And actually, I think it's really useful to think about my development, so what's my coaching qualification element, and also what is my other development that is actually going to sustain my practice, because beyond a certain point that qualification is really not going to that's not going to sustain you.
Totally. No, I agree with everything you're saying, and you make another important point, which is, you know, to put it boldly, coach training doesn't necessarily, you know, the best coach training in the world, the most expensive coach training in the world, doesn't make you the best coach in the world. And what equips you is so much more. It's a bit, and again, it's a bit like education and life, isn't it? You know, because you've got a master's degree, does that make you a better botanist than somebody that didn't go to school and studied botany but just learnt it? I don't know. It's an extreme example, but I'm pointing to the same thing. There is the practical application and experience that comes from just coaching. You know, it's like learning about running, reading about running, eating the right things in order to make you a good runner. It doesn't make you a good runner. You have to go out and pound that pavement, and you have to pull your boots on, or not that you've been running in boots, but you have to get out and start coaching, which I think is what you're and I know some of the fields you work in where you're getting frustrated because you're seeing people, these large corporations and putting people through expensive coach training, and those guys aren't coaching.
No. And no, exactly. And they're not even getting the chance to put their boots on because they're already going on to the next level of qualification. And it's like, okay, so, and I think it disempowers you as a coach because you think you invest. The qualification becomes the investment of all your energy, and it takes away from the actual coaching, where you should be putting your energy, or you need to be putting your energy.
So if somebody was new, coming at this new, looking at the array of bodies, levels, money involved, providers, what advice would you give them?
I think what I would say is actually goes back to your point earlier in our conversation. What do you want to do with your coaching? What are you here to do in your coaching? What's your reason for doing your coaching? And think about a coaching qualification that fits not just your context, but also how you want to learn as well. Because they're getting more expensive, they're getting more intricate, and some coaching qualifications are bringing in themes and topics and issues from the coaching conversations. Is that what you want at this point? I think it's about thinking about actually what do you need to learn, do you think, in order to feel comfortable as a coach, to put those boots on and start walking in them. And yes, do your research. Yes, find out what options there are available to you. And most qualifications now will probably give you a baseline anyway. So what is it that you really want from a qualification?
Yes, I think you're right. I think you're right. And if I were walking around with a few £1,000 in my pocket looking for the best coach qualification, I think I'd be looking to spend as little as I could on the academic side of it to understand, what's gone before. I'd be looking to spend more on the practical element of get me coaching, get me in a room where I can see demonstrations of coaching, where I can be encouraged to coach other people and get feedback on that, and get me some practical tools. So the world, as you know, the field of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, has a huge amount to offer people. I would almost be saying, can you spend some of your budget on just a basic NLP introductory course, because it gives us so much in terms of tools and techniques and principles and perspectives for coaching. But it's one of those interesting ongoing situations that you and I over a 20-year period have both seen just burgeon into this many-headed monster, really. And there are some amazing coach trainers out there and some amazing training on offering. I guess the challenge for any individual is to find, to centre on your own sense of purpose and sense of self in order to divine your way towards the perfect provider for you.
And I think talk to people who are coaching, talk to people doing it.
Yeah.
Talk to them about what worked for them. Where did they get their greatest learning?
Yes.
Rather than going on the internet or just looking at all the courses and all the breakdowns, etc. They'll all come down to the same thing.
Yeah.
I think it's talk. So
no, I agree. That's great. Great discussion. Thank you.
So thank you. And thank you to our listeners for being here. And go well with your coaching.